This podcast is brought to you by Guiding Growing Minds, a social enterprise that aims to give all children the best opportunity to reach their potential and succeed in living rich and meaningful lives.
Episode 90, Billy. 10 short of a ton. Reflection episode on morals. What are people going to learn this week?
Yeah, so it took a bit of time to get through them. The classic, I gave some long answers to some short questions, which I love doing, but some really practical stuff through, early kids that are hugely empathetic, parents that have shared their own troubles going through childhood and not wanting to do it with their kids, teenagers that are struggling with this stuff. Practical steps of how to apply their theory in a way that's real world, some amazing stuff from parents. I choked through some feedback at the end, just for a change. And hopefully a good one. Apologies for the length.
Could arguably my favourite episode, Billy, because I did get myself an amazing new T-shirt from a listener, which I'm so grateful for. So thank you very much for that. And we got some amazing feedback at the end there. Guys, this is episode 90. Dig in and enjoy it.
Hi, I'm Billy, a developmental paediatrician.
And I'm Nick, a developing parent.
We're going to use scenes from iconic movies to talk about how we best support our kids.
This is pop culture parenting.
Hey, don't let your mother smell that beer on your breath. She'll take it out on me.
I don't want to see you again for the rest of my whole life. I don't want to see anybody else either.
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
Just use your best judgment. We trust you.
Good morning, Dr. Billy Garvey. How are you?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Good. We just wrapped up that last chat, but I did like where it was going off air just then.
Yes.
It's excitement. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, potentially. We can't really ask people, it's got to be Melbourne people, about whether they'd like a live show.
Oh, hang on. I thought we were going to Brazil.
Oh, yes. And what's it called?
Americana.
The Americana, yes, yeah.
Big live show, Billy. Big week, big episode. You back from a little sojourn?
Yes. I'm
Relaxed?
surprised you recognise me, how tanned I am.
Yep.
Must be that light. Just must have too much white.
It's bull dust. You should, mate. You and I, we've got about a good 10 minutes of golden hour in us a day to take photos, and that's it. And lots of white T-shirts. You've gone the black T-shirt.
I know,
Doesn't
they
help
say
with
you
the
should
tan.
never wear black, but I've run out of shades of green. So had to do a bit of TV lately. No, 2 days ago I did some TV and I wore a green T-shirt, and then my the person who's running the PR for the book was like, "Oh yeah, and you're on TV again tomorrow morning." And I was like, the biggest dilemma I had was I can't wear green. So
Can't wear it 2 days in a row.
No, that'd just look bad. But yeah, big week. The book is now officially out.
Bang.
It's been out for a couple of days.
Number one on the charts, I saw.
Yes, yeah. I think it was number one yesterday, and now it's number two, some coffee book. So if anyone's thinking between buying a book about kids' mental health and coffee, do us a favour and buy the...
Prioritise.
Yeah, so... But no, it's beautiful, and that's a big part of the PCP. And I've already had some people send in some feedback that, one amazing parent has read half of it and liked it, which was amazing.
Mate?
Well, yeah. I mean, you got it a bit early, but people who bought it only got it yesterday. But yeah, and one beautiful mum emailed me last night and said that her and her husband had read it. She read it out to him, the first couple of chapters, and was tearful.
Done that.
So
We did the same thing.
Yeah,
So
really.
you had tried to send me a copy before it came out.
Yeah.
And then I was like, still haven't got it. 2 copies then arrived on the same day. And so I've got my copy, Henry's got hers, so I highlight mine. And then we did the reading on Sunday night on one of the chapters. So just switched page for page.
Yeah, amazing.
Don't need 2 books to do that really, but I mean we had 2, so we had our own. Yeah.
Any thoughts? Like if it's anything
Loved
negative comes on the mics, we'll just cut it out.
Get ready, editor. He says to the, watch out guys, there's no one else in the room. One thing I can say is I'm not a big reader. It is such an easy read. It's not daunting, and I'm not getting assaulted with science. It's so easy, Billy.
Yeah, amazing.
And the reality is it's 20 pages a chapter on nice, like it's good print and stuff. Like it's good. You can easily read it and digest it. It is really similar to the episodes in the not similar structure. We don't talk about movies, obviously, but the examples are good and you follow stories the whole way through. I love it.
Yeah, beautiful.
And it's so nice. And when I think about a parenting book, like the ones I had back in the day were like, Save Our Sleep and all these other ones or whatever
Yeah.
they were. And then I remember someone handed me a book that was 400 pages long on parenting, and I was like, "What's this?" Yours is it's just an easy, unintimidating read, and that's what makes it great.
Yeah, thank you. That's great, mate. Because I tried to. I was so nervous. So it's nice that a couple of people sent in that they like it, and to hear that feedback from you, because I was like, oh God, are people going to like this? But yeah, the book is, as we've spoken about, it's just a part of. It's one of the things that we're trying to do, just like the podcast. Guiding Growing Minds now has an official website.
Bang.
So guidinggrowingminds.com. There's a lot of information there about other options, about going out and talking and some of the other things that we do with professional development. There's also an episode list, finally. So if you go to the podcast, there's a list of episodes, so you don't have to scroll through and figure out what you want to listen to. And then you'll see links to YouTube and things there. We're up on YouTube, so if you have the desire to watch or listen for free, that's the reason we're up on YouTube in reality. That's there, and we're on TikTok.
Yeah, I've seen us on TikTok. When do the dances start? When do we start dancing?
Yeah, well, maybe once we've monetized it.
Do anything.
No, we'll never monetize it. That's the whole point of it. So, and I appreciate people, buying the book, because I know that's a resource, and especially during tough times. So, really appreciate it. But yeah, how have you been, mate?
Yeah, good. Cruising along. Had a 4-year-old's birthday. My child's 4-year-old birthday.
Yeah, it was great.
Navigating school holidays. Oh, who's out there? They're all out there. School holidays. It's my second round of school holidays ever. Whew. They are not easy days.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's where the real balance between work and school is hard.
Yeah, well, I've never thought about it. We're going to have a better plan than this one by the time we get there.
Yeah, got a plan. So it's a mix of spinning plates and juggling, family, friends, holiday programs, precision drop-off and pick-up, meetings in between. It's on.
Yeah.
It's on. It's not complaining. I'm just saying, I sound like one of those new, sometimes if you're a new parent, you're kind of like, oh, this is the way, and it is. And it feels like that. And it's really hard.
Yeah.
And then after a while, you kind of get stronger and better at it. Like you build muscle.
Yeah.
School is that. What am I, 5 months into school? And I'm like,
yeah,
really learning.
Yeah, it's tough because, some of the, we've just gone away with, 6 adults and 7 kids.
Yep.
And, you kind of see that because one of the weeks during the holidays. It was very funny on the second day there. We were on the beach, just all of us together. I didn't tell you this story. And this good-looking guy kind of runs up out of the surf, and he's like, "Hey, are you Billy Garvey?" And listens to the podcast. And we said hi, and one of our friends, who you can think of, phenomenal mum actually, he's like, "Oh, does this happen a bit?" And she chips in and goes, "Oh, this is the first time it's happened. To be honest, we thought he'd be in double digits by now." That was the only time it happened. So, but still very much appreciated. So, but yeah, they're doing the juggle of how do you manage this with 2 full-time workers and stuff. So
it's that hard, but it's it's learning. I'm sure we're all just learning and all that jazz like parenting.
And speaking of learning, moral development.
Moral development. I feel like I hear morals. I'm like,
Yeah.
I worry about mine sometimes, Billy, but I'm working on it.
Beautiful. Well, that's actually important because I think that's our first short, but we'll do the polls first.
Do the polls first. Yeah. Let's go. Episode 90, nervous 90s.
Yes, isn't it amazing? 90.
Cricket term, nervous 90s.
Yeah, okay. Oh, because you're about to hit 100.
Yeah, you're in the 100, nervous 90s, they call it. Anyway, episode 90, let's go, Billy. First poll question. Did you get support in moral development growing up? Half of the audience exactly said yes.
How did you feel about that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I did. I got a little bit of pressure, a non-intentional pressure on me, but my mum was very altruistic and used to do a lot for the community and stuff. And I found that a little bit intimidating, to be honest, and a bit hard, looking up to it, and felt a lot of pressure to be like that.
Yep.
And bucked against it a bit. We'll talk about teens and anti-authority.
Yeah, I was brought up just in a Catholic family, so I think that's where I got a lot of it from, through that sort of stuff, just general teaching. I went to Catholic primary schools and stuff like that, so it was kind of part of I don't know, I felt like they were teaching morals. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, definitely. There's, for some people that's a really good guide. Not for everyone, but yeah. And I grew up initially in that system as well. Yeah. Second question.
Do you struggle to guide your kids in moral development? 58% said yes.
How do you feel about that?
I'd say it's not a deliberate practice of guiding them. I think I do. I mean, if you think about setting the right example, I feel like I do a lot of the time, like any other parent, not all the time. You know, it seems like little things with kids. Like when I pull up in a no parking zone, one of my daughters knows it now, and she goes, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "Oh, it's just quick. I'm just running in."
Yeah.
Because literally your sister this happened 2 weeks ago. I pulled up in the no parking zone. She said, "What are you doing?" I go, "Well, your sister's left her blanket in the cafe. I've got to go in and get it. And I can't leave. I'm not getting you two out of the car again. And I've got to go in and do it." And she's like, "But it's not right." I'm like, "Yeah, well, I'm just give me a second."
Yeah.
And the takeaway was, it's okay to do this sometimes. I said, exactly. Jeez,
great,
Billy,
isn't it?
how much help do I need here?
Well, no, I mean, I wouldn't do that, but no, but the beautiful thing about that is you're having a conversation about it.
Yeah, okay.
And that's actually what matters. We can probably wrap the app now because that's actually what matters. It's not that we tell them what's right and wrong. We talk with them about it. And that's what morals is. What is right and what's wrong.
It's got to be flexibility.
Yeah, that's what happens is the rigidity of early childhood changes.
Yep.
And that's the steps we talked about last time is that,
she was so rigid.
Really, really common, you know, and I think there's questions about it.
There is.
Last poll question.
Do you think we need to be better in helping kids develop morals? I don't reckon we've ever had 98% of people say yes to something like that. That has got to be the most overwhelming yes response we've ever had.
And how do you feel about that response when we've just had a response that lots of people say they were guided pretty well when they were kids and that they're doing a good job of guiding their own kids?
How do I feel?
And then the final one is like, but we all need to do better.
Yeah, it's hard to prioritise.
But, you know, a big group of people, maybe not the majority, but a big group of people said it was good for them when they were kids and they're doing it okay with their own kids.
But that's your takeaway. So I think there's probably just a difference between what the parents think they're doing a good enough job and what the kids' outtake will be 30 years from now.
Yeah. Do you know the interesting, there's even research going back like 70 years comparing like what generations have said about like kids growing up these days. And it's fairly consistently people have said, you know, there's this moral dilemma collectively that people don't care enough and kids these days and like, you know, the society's crumbling. And it's really interesting because I think, you know, I even get asked about this on media a lot about like why are things getting worse and all that stuff. But it's important to remember this is something we've struggled with for decades.
Why do you think it is getting worse? Or is it actually getting worse?
I think it's really complex. We know that we're having increased presentations of mental health problems to our emergency departments in our clinics, but that's in the setting of a greater awareness. It's also in the setting of like collective anxiety off the back of the pandemic. It's also, you know, for the first time in my career, private practices are closing their books. So people who can afford now don't have a pathway to get support through that. So yeah, it's, you know, we are seeing, you know, when all of this stuff gets hard, and this is a really important point about moral development, childhood actually, once things get difficult and we're in emotional turmoil, it's very hard for us to be altruistic or to think of others and things like that. And you only need to think about that yourself. If you're having a really, really hard time, like struggling to put food on the table, you know, for your family and stuff, it's very hard to be like, well, think about the other person and perspective taking and sharing and altruism. This is high order stuff that we're talking about. And this is like, we've got a beautiful bit of feedback that I'll read out, but, you know, this is really thinking about it. But, you know, for me, it's about looking out in the community and seeing all the amazing stuff people are doing. That's my moral guide, and that's what I do. I forgot to mention you're wearing a beautiful, delightful T-shirt. For people at home or on Instagram, they'll see it on some of the highlights. I did a talk right before I left in this beautiful community about an hour out of Melbourne. And it was very funny because this woman came up to me who's an amazing teacher and was like asking me, having a conversation about school and what she's struggling with in supporting her kids and doing an amazing job, and she's a parent herself. And then she reaches into the bag and she's like, "Oh, this is a bit awkward, but I've got a present." And I was like, "Oh, great, I'd love a present." And then she goes, "It's for Nick," and hands me that T-shirt. Oh. So that's for you, mate. I'm still waiting for my present.
I'm greatly appreciative. Thank you very much. Is she sort of like Nick looks like he's doing it a bit hard in his current clothing set.
No, I think it's just how great colours look on you.
Oh, thank you. It's beautiful. I actually had a look at it. Billy and I discussed it beforehand. It's covered in dinosaurs. It's very much in the Jurassic Park vibe.
It is, yes.
You can see the Jeeps on
there's
it.
the Jeep as well.
There's the Jeep and there's the volcano.
Oh, yeah.
And then the
Do you know, I got the
Triceratops.
dinosaurs. I didn't get the Jurassic Park.
Beware. It says beware. And it's got the same make of open top car as well.
Yeah, amazing. And do you know the other thing that happened to me at that talk? Just to a mum came up to me at the end. How's this for a phenomenal parent? Sat through 90 minutes of me talking, which is short. You've come to one of my talks.
Do it every fortnight.
Yes. And 90 minutes of me talking, and she comes up and I could just tell there's a few people wanted to chat, but I could just tell she needed to be first. Just could sense the tension. And I went over and spoke to her and said, hey. And she's like, that was really great, but I've got something that you didn't really cover, a question. And I was like, oh, yeah, what's up? Tell me. Because I love, questions.
I know
That's why
you
all
do.
these part twos. Yeah, the Q&A time of
You
any
love it.
professional development I do. Right?
It's your favourite.
Yeah, it's really funny. Someone who's quite amazing in this space gave me this advice years ago and said, always have one question that you say, I don't know the answer to, because it shows how humble you are. I've never been able to do that. I cannot let a question go past me just for the point of being
have a crack.
this is how humble I am. I'm like, no, I've always got to have a shot at it. Anyway, she comes up to me and goes, I've got 2 teenage daughters.
Yeah.
They're amazing. And their dad, who I live with, is dying of a brain tumour. And he's losing his memory and he doesn't have long to go and he can't recognise us anymore. I have to work full time to pay for his care and keep the bills going and everything like that. How do I support my girls through this grieving process? I was like, wow, you've just sat through 90 minutes of me talking about this stuff. Some pretty cheesy jokes that I've told a couple of 100 times, and all this stuff, and then waited to come and talk to me and said that. And it was one of the first times, I try and separate my clinical work and the podcast, but it was one of the first times where I was like, you have to listen to these episodes. I gave her a bunch of resources and we spoke about it a bit, but I was like, you've got to go back. And I scrolled through my phone because the catalogue on the website wasn't there yet and found what numbers My Girl in Grief are and was like, you got to listen to these, because I just very rarely do that. I don't feel comfortable being like, go and listen to the podcast. But yeah, what an amazing parent to be sitting through that talk. And that's my point, is you look out in the community and there's people that are coming to a talk and thinking about you and going and buying you a T-shirt or thinking about how to guide their kids during this horrific, active trauma that's happening in their family. And yeah, it's really beautiful. So yeah, I really love that stuff.
Yeah, the T-shirt's amazing.
Looks good on you.
I think because of the high colour and print. The person has absolutely nailed the brief for the podcast, because I usually come in with a bit of colour.
And do you know what? I forgot to tell you this as well.
It's beautiful.
Yesterday, one of the TV gigs I did, guess what I had?
Well,
hair and makeup done.
what was it like?
Amazing.
Really?
I looked 10 years younger, so
really?
Late 20s.
Oh, my...
36. Yeah, so it was amazing. So I've been thinking about, the social enterprise, I need to find a way to fund some admin help.
I've asked,
just because I'm drowning, but I'm like, I think actually we need hair and makeup.
I've asked for so little. I've asked for 2 things so far. Heat, because we're out here in a shed. And hair and makeup, it's all I want.
And let's be honest, how did we get heat?
I bought the heater. I'm not buying the makeup. Billy, I need makeup. For those, don't go to YouTube. Can we not send anyone to YouTube?
Well,
please?
yeah, it'd be nice if some people. There's a lot of people putting a lot of work into YouTube.
Sorry. Obviously, I'm joking. Sorry, my point about going to YouTube is you get a look at me, and I'm just. I don't know. These aren't even crow's feet. These are like T-Rex feet. There's a bit going on here. No, sorry. Go to the YouTube.
It's because we smile so much, mate. It's because we smile so much.
It's just I don't look good. Hopefully it's not in HD. It's dull it down to 960, whatever it is. All right, Billy. Hey, you got some shorts to get through, mate.
Well, no, let's go feedback, shorts, longs.
Okay.
Or should we do? Let's do.
Reflections.
Yeah, so let's go. We'll go tit for tat. So you do first one.
No dramas.
I'll do second. You do
cool. Okay. Hey, Billy and Nick. Thank you for the incredible podcast. There are very few resources out there for parents that are funny, accurate, genuine and compassionate, and yours hits all of those nails on the head. So, my Winslow. It starts with a Griswold, but trust me, it gets better. I grew up with a mentally ill mum who did her very best, but she just didn't cope and still doesn't. I have learned I have poor attachment. Cut to me being a hyper-independent, successful paramedic in a really rough part of Melbourne who decided to have kids, who decided that having kids would be just another milestone. I would smash out of the park. Unfortunately, as you mentioned, Billy, as health workers, sometimes we are the last ones to see that we need help. It was my maternal health nurse who identified my postnatal depression, which was later identified as post-traumatic stress disorder, which was not at all helped by a brain tumour that made my moods, breastfeeding, and just about everything else a pain in the butt. She referred me to a program run by a local psychologist who was running one of only 2 Circle of Security courses in Australia that were publicly funded and available to women in high-risk situations. Long story short, this course changed my life, and that is no exaggeration. It completely overhauled the way I was parenting my then 2-year-old and my newborn baby boy. I no longer took mum's advice on emotions. Ignore any emotional outburst and immediately walk away. The tantrum will stop real quick. Cue child shutting down and suppressing their emotions. Her approach has continued into adulthood. She continues to shut down any negative emotion, which makes it really hard to remember every day. This is not how I wish to parent. And thanks to Circle of SOC, I now understand my own approach to attachment. Show me the empathy. You see what I did there? So finally, to the Winslow and the moral development story, I wanted to connect an attached theory. I wanted to connect the attachment theory episodes and the moral development because my daughter demonstrated this so beautifully, particularly the theory of mind. I was approached by her 4-year-old kinder teacher gushing about the emotional intelligence of my daughter, and I have no doubt that attachment theory and
Circle of Security
gave me the tools to help develop this in her. My daughter, my 4-year-old, had 2 little friends at kinder, one of which I'll call Elle, suffered from terrible anxiety. My girl had been comforting him and playing with him throughout the year at kinder. On this particular day, she had gone outside with her little friend E and noticed Elle hadn't come outside. She went inside to find him and said, as quoted by the kindergarten teacher who was with him, "Hey Elle, you are feeling big worries and that's okay, but we'd like you to play with us. So if you want to stay inside, we can do that, but we are playing on the swings and when you're ready, you can come and play with us. It's very fun and you will be safe there." This blew my mind. I know adults who can't do this. It's 7 years later, my 11-year-old girl is such an incredible person. She has kept the empathetic outlook and is so emotionally intelligent. I am now retired from paramedics and I'm able to focus entirely on raising the beautiful humans. My son is autistic and ADHD, and Circle of Security has provided the most foundation to responding to his unique needs majority of the time. I do have one question that relates to the story. I am keen to learn how to best support my empathetic daughter in putting her own needs first sometimes. I don't want to squash the beautiful heart of hers, nor allow her to be walked all over. Anyway, I hope you find the story relevant and it encourages other parents to see the benefits and attachment-focused approach to parenting.
Amazing. Beautiful connection between the 2 latest topics and, yeah, what a parent. And beautiful insight into, don't just walk away from kids who are struggling. So, yes, great. And also just, how we're going to cover that question. It comes up again of, how do I make sure that they don't sacrifice their own, value for that of others, because that's really common, especially in girls. All right, and sorry, I threw out your order, but let's go to the next bit of feedback. So, Dr. Billy and Dr. Nick, firstly, what an amazing podcast. I'm a new listener, and after discovering your Instagram page and some of the videos you had on attachment, boy, I was hooked. I've since gone back to the very beginning and have started listening to all the EPs. I now often talk to my friend's husband and psychologist about all the wonderful things I'm learning on PCP. Then, as I was driving to work today at the crack of dawn, I was listening to this episode about Jerry Maguire and moral development. Fantastic episode and really super interesting to consider the development of empathy and the different steps we can help our kids evolve through. As always, I was listening intently and really letting the information flow over me. Then right at the end, out comes Billy with a bombshell that I had to rewind, not once, not twice, but 3 times separately, just to hear it again. In the kids that are in late primary school to high school, we want to really give them a voice. That we're not always saying, because I said so, or because that's the way it is. At this point, I'm physically driving to work, but I'm mentally transported back to being a teenager, where I was constantly told by my father how disrespectful I am for disagreeing with him. How dare I have an opinion on anything that's different from his own? As a child, his word was law, and I believed it. It wasn't until I became a mother myself that I can now see how problematic that is. I was never encouraged to explore my views of the world or explore the way others do, because it was what he said or nothing. I have a child, 18 months old, and want nothing more for him than to expand his mind beyond his own life and consider the world around him and how it all fits together. An opportunity I was not afforded as a child myself. I understand my father came from a severely abusive childhood where he was hurt and neglected, and I know he broke the cycle of physical abuse when he raised me and my brothers, but I don't think it's even registered with him that he repeated other behaviours which may have the capacity to make us smaller than who we are. Despite having my voice squashed at home, I fought to have it heard elsewhere, and I'm conducting research with the aim to publish next year. I can't even express the joy I feel thinking there will be a piece of work out there that I created, my findings and my analysis of them. Motherhood has changed me in ways I could never imagine. Certainly it has not been an easy road, and seeing a psychologist has been a lifesaver for me. I started seeing my psychologist at about 5 months postpartum after having many roller coaster emotions about the birth. Somehow, all this time later, I now sit and unpack with her all the things I experienced as a child and how I can do better for my son. But this still felt like it wasn't enough. It needed to stretch even further for me. There needed to be more I could do. I was so dramatically changed by parenthood that now I work in an early parenting centre and support other young families through the challenges of taking care of these little people. I listen to your podcast and often bring the insights into my daily work and recommend it to parents and families all the time. Anyway, I'm probably waffling on a bit, but all of this is to say thanks. You guys are doing some life-altering work here. Amazing.
Lovely.
Yeah, what a parent.
Amazing. All right. Another one, Billy. Hey, Dr. Billy and Nick. Dr. H here, behavioural veterinarian, still gasping every episode at the comparisons between my patients and yours. So many similarities. Not that I would ever compare my level of knowledge to yours, Dr. Billy. I love hearing from both of you, as my most important job is a mum to 6 and 9-year-old boys. Love the Jerry Maguire app, RE morals and empathy in particular. My 9-year-old boy is a sweet, hyperactive, sensitive, funny kid, energetic little boy who even describes himself as feeling too much empathy. He's always worried if others are upset, and a recent example was an under-9s basketball game. He was on court when a player from the opposition fell. Total accident. My son was nowhere near to be involved. The opposition boy was crying loudly and clutching his wrist and had to be carried off the court. For the following minutes until half-time, my son was not paying attention to the game at all. Instead, kept looking at the bench, checking if the boy was hurt. I thought he was going to cry too. The hurt boy calmed down after a few minutes, but until the end of the game, my son was worried for him. He saw him in the vending machine after and saw he was fine and all was well. This is just an example. He gets so worried if someone else is hurt. This does not result in him not taking typical 9-year-old choices that result in himself getting hurt, but risk-taking behaviour in 9-year-old boys is another day. I feel like I've been navigating my space for a while. As my husband is vegan, I feel like I've been navigating this space for a while. As my husband is vegan and has not shied away from teaching my son his beliefs in animal ethics and welfare and why he thinks we should not eat animal products. a lot around how animals feel. I think this has fed into my son's sensitive nature and has resulted in a very empathetic boy, maybe too empathetic. On the flip, he and I are pescatarian because I believe in balance, and he is 9 and will proudly but fairly explain our food choices and always adds, but people can make their own choice for them. So food has been a great chance for us to teach about wider beliefs and how to handle it when we have different beliefs and morals to other people. Sorry for the ramble. You're both amazing. Thanks again.
Yeah, wonderful.
Beautiful.
And yeah, I don't think I've got, more saying that they would never compare my level of knowledge. I'm sure they've got huge amounts of knowledge. And yeah, people, if anyone's interested, reach out about just doing this stuff, because I think a lot of us who have this knowledge should be more comfortable sharing it. I think there's a lot of it missing. Okay, last one. And that was beautiful. I love that example. It's going to come up in the shorts. That's the reason that one's there, because it's a beautiful demonstration of where we want kids to land, not kind of forcing their beliefs onto other people, but that beautiful kid saying, but people should make their own choice. Hi, Billy and Nick. Firstly, keep doing this wonderful work. You're national treasures. I could write an essay on how essential this education is and how well you are packaging and delivering it, but Instagram already wouldn't let me post this in a DM due to length. All of the many episodes have made me think, but this is the first for which I feel compelled to carve out time for a response. I listened to podcast 89 yesterday and it stirred a lot of thoughts for me. I could probably go deeper, but given my lack of spoons right now, here is the essence of the thought train I went along. I see a massive disconnect in large societies in general in our ability to collectively hold a high standard of moral development. So few individuals seem to reach this live there anymore. As a result, communities are fractured without the collective agreement to uphold these norms that value others. Few leaders, institutions, governments display these skills. Fewer corporations act this way. We purport to admire high moral standards but only pay lip service to them. When individuals actively display them, they're often shunned or ostracised at best and possibly eliminated at worst. I don't know that this is going to be a repairable situation in my lifetime, if ever. From lived experience, I do strongly feel the neurodivergent crowd often display the ability to act from a position of holding high moral standards. I think this is one of the ways in which our brains are naturally differently wired. And as one of those autistic individuals, I feel it mostly a lonely position in which to be, unless I'm communicating with my neurokin. Certainly no person in a position of power has ever welcomed my higher moral perspective or thanked me for pointing out the gap between what was happening and what ideally should be our aim. In fact, sometimes it's put me in an obvious unsafe situation. This leads me to wonder, if we are championing higher moral development, and I believe we should be, where is our collective appreciation and support for not only the educators but for the individuals displaying it? Do we tell kids, this is important and you need to risk your life for it? Or this is important but conditional? Where's the safety net coming from when we practice this? I'm sure there's a dissertation in here somewhere from many different angles: philosophy, sociology, psychology, politics, economics, colonialism. But I'm going to just leave you with the above as a starting point for further discussion. Thanks for continuing to shine the light where it needs to be shone. I don't know how that makes you feel, but you have to remind you, you've got to pick a favourite question or bit of feedback because someone's going to get a book sent their way. The last person actually was from the UK, which I didn't realise until they sent it to me. And so I had to sheepishly say to Penguin, how do you feel about sending one to the UK? So, but they sent a lovely message back. But yeah, how do you feel about what that person said?
Yeah, it's tough. Getting my head around what the whole of society's kind of feeling, that thing of there's this challenge. It overwhelms me, to be honest, just hearing that. I can't get my head around all of it. It's probably so focused on my current world, and maybe I should think a little bit more about the broader thing.
Yeah, totally. I understand that. It doesn't overwhelm me, it excites me. So when we built Guiding Growing Minds, this amazing person called Lindell she runs a strategy firm called Just Add Colour, has given hours and hours for free. One of the first things we sat down and said, what are the values of Guiding Growing Minds going to be? And it was something that I really sensed there was a very easy pathway to just pay lip service and be like, we'll just say this, it sounds good. But living it is harder, the beautiful thing, what this person is saying, that I'm just more optimistic than them, is that we're missing out on valuable voices at the moment in the community. And the neurodiversity component of this ability to understand detail and things like that is missing because, you know, a lot of individuals who have so much to contribute to this space because of the rigidity of the system and the structures around them and don't have a loud enough voice. And that's, you know, I do not have all the answers to that, but what I'm slowly trying to achieve is the ability to have discussions and to empower other people who are better than me in this space, because Guiding Growing Minds intentionally sits outside of all those organisations because I 100% agree with this person.
Person's self-awareness is incredible. Like, I think being able to synthesise all of that, that's the thing that I...
Do you remember that? Do you know what it reminded me of? Do you remember? I can't remember what it was, but I reckon it was in the last few episodes. There was a beautiful example of a boy who had autism and was really highly empathetic and was talking about, you know, how he often doesn't get his needs met, but he's so empathetic and kind and generous to everyone else. And it was the same. It's a really important topic. So that's why I wanted that there. And I hope that by us opening this up, we are in a small way helping, you know, give that voice.
Yeah.
Now, I've totally stuffed you up, but I'm sorry about that. Let's do the shorts.
Sure. Okay. Just how? I'm not even sure how my own morals evolve, let alone find the teachable bits.
Yeah, which goes back to what you were saying. You're still working on yours. You know, I'm still working on mine. I get up every day and try and be better than I was the day before in terms of this. This is the high order stuff. We know we're going to talk about some of the influences that happen, but this starts from a very early age. And what we want it to be is intrinsic. We want it to be like, this is matters to me. Does that make sense?
Okay. This matters to me should be your guiding principle.
Yeah, so remember we talked about last time, very early stage is just like the first bit that Kohlberg talked about was there's a negative consequence if I do the wrong thing, and that's why I don't do it. And then the next bit is like because I get praised for doing it. We want to move beyond that, but even as adults, it's really beautiful. The mum who was like, you know, this is the first person who's come up to him. We thought it'd be in the dozens by now. You know who that is, one of our very close friends. She said this beautiful thing about her son, her oldest, who you know, and he was a bit older than all the kids that were on the holiday. And she said, I was like, and you've probably felt like this with him as well, he's been a really good, warm, likeable kid since very early on, hasn't he? He's just like that. He's got this aura about him. And I was like, you must be so happy about how good a person he is. And she's like, yeah, the good thing is he's good for the sake of it. It's not because of what comes back to him. And I was like, that's amazing, because it's beautiful that that's how she frames it. He had this funny thing with his dad, who you and I are both very close with, where we're at this like really shady water park, like probably borderline unsafe, but I was so keen to go. And anyway, at the end of the day, we were all getting ready and drying the kids off and stuff. And Evie was the only girl, and there was 3 boys that were all a little bit older than her. And they were all standing on this bridge. And I was listening to what was happening, but our mate wasn't. And the oldest boy stood in front of the 2 boys and kind of physically pushed them back. And he went over and was like, mate, what are you doing? And like chastised him. And I was like, mate, like just so you know, the other 2 boys were saying no girls are allowed on the bridge. And he stepped over and said, no, she's allowed. And it was this beautiful like demonstration of what all of us are aiming for. That's a really altruistic activity by him, because he's putting his own needs aside to fit in with these 2 older boys and to comply with the group and sticking up with someone who's on the outside. And it was just beautiful. It was amazing. And it's because of how purposefully he's got a very easy temperament to guide that way, because he's a sensitive, emotional kid, like one of the feedback we got. But it was just this like really great demonstration. But it's funny, like he almost got chastised for it, and it was just because it didn't get heard. Yeah. You know what I mean? We just saw the behaviour. And the final bit about this, because otherwise this episode is going to go for ages, intention is what matters, not the outcome. So when we're guiding our own morals, remember how important intention is. We want to think about it. A lot of what's really hard is having moral judgments, like what's the right thing to do, but it's a different step to do it. Does that make sense? Yeah. And we talked about this last time in terms of Piaget and saying that a lot of the time people will look at the outcome when they're young. So someone's playing with a puppy and accidentally hurts it and the puppy goes off. Young kids will look at that person as worse than a person who intends to hurt the puppy but doesn't.
Yep, gotcha.
Because they go, first person hurt the puppy, second person didn't. at a higher level, we shouldn't look at what happens. We should think about what was the person trying to achieve, what were they thinking.
Yep.
The first person was trying to play with the puppy. The second person was trying to hurt the puppy. That's it's easy for you and I, black and white, to see that. But it's important that we think about
I like that intention bit.
Yeah, the intention is what matters. That's what we want to try and give to kids. And there's a beautiful, we'll end on some advice directly to you about this.
Great. Hey, Billy, where to start for a toddler?
Yeah, really important. So I'll try and speed up a little bit. But yeah, so we know that kids from a very early age will start developing empathy. We talked about this. People used to say kids are born with it. They're not. They need guidance and support. That's why I push back against this idea that let's just let kids all run out there and free play and we never actually scaffold them on anything. But really important. So interestingly, there's really cool research, once again, back to puppets. We talked about puppets like 2 years ago. They do research on puppets where, like, there's, say, a lion and a bear, and one of the lion is, being a bit mean, so is not equally distributing. I think they use tokens or coins or something to other characters in the play, but the bear is. A 10-month-old, if you give them the option and say, do you want to play with the lion or the bear, they'll just randomly pick. A 14 to 15-month-old will always pick the animal that was sharing equally. And it's this really interesting thing that kids in the second, year of life will preference that. And so it's the other final bit that's really important in young kids is they'll often have like different stages of helping. So Piaget was amazing about this, but he was a bit too simplified in like there's one scheme for moral development, but we actually know now there's lots. One of them is helping. Yep. From a very young age, little babies before they're a year will do what's called instrumental helping. So what that means is they see an adult who's trying to reach for something, they don't want it, but they'll reach and hand it to them. So that's really early pro-social. I want to help someone who needs help. The next level that they go to in the second year of their life is called empathetic helping. And what that means is that someone's distressed, I will help them. For example, I'm getting upset because I can't tie my hair up or get something off my face, and they will help because they go, I want to help relieve the emotional distress that person's having. The final stage is altruism, which is I will sacrifice my own resources. And when kids start doing this, when they will give a child a toy that they have, so they will share, but they will share and at their own deficit. And that's the highest level that we'll often see those younger kids go to.
Yeah, wow.
So anyway, sorry.
No, you're right.
I'm burning time, aren't I?
It's fine. Hey, Billy, how to help kids focus on their own morals rather than policing other people's?
Yeah. I mean, what do you think about this?
Tough.
It is tough, isn't it? Because I do it. I walk around and in my own mind, I'm perfect. And I walk around, I'm like, that person didn't pick up after their dog. That person didn't hold the door open for that person. That person parked somewhere that was not meant to park. Yeah,
I think I reckon it's about reconciling with yourself. You just got to like focus on yourself a bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just you can bite off so much more, and if your own sort of backyard's not in order, I think you should just focus on yourself. But you can't explain that to a kid, I guess.
Well, no. So you can't explain it to a kid who's in preschool because preschool age kids will be very black and white and rigid about this. You're out of bounds. You're out of bounds, miss. They're out of bounds.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? And it's not because they're bad. Yep. But it's it's a very they've got rigidity around black and white, and that higher level that they go to is often later.
Okay.
So supporting them and guiding them.
Okay. Hey, Billy, how can you help explain ill morals of others who succeeded because of them?
Great question. How do you do that? So say you guys are at the cafe.
I don't know how you do it.
So you guys are at the cafe and you're in line.
Yeah,
then they parked in a no parking spot.
Can we just go? So let's just do the one where you're in line and there's.
Well, let's say we're walking along and Evie says, "How come Uncle Nick is parking?" You're one of the highest moral people I know, so that's why I'm still.
No, you just wind me up and then you go, "Oh, but you're good. You're good." Yeah. Okay. So what do? Someone cuts in line ahead of you in the coffee line, sort of thing.
The kid says, "Hey, what happened? Why is that person allowed to do that? Now they're going to get what we wanted before us."
Oh, I'm not sure if I think I would. I don't know. I don't know what I'd do in that situation.
So you explore how they feel about it. Don't tell them what's right and wrong.
Okay, yeah, that's what you meant to do. Ask questions. Yep. Okay.
So what happened? And then you can say, well, how do you think the person behind them would feel? Because they were there and they waited. So you explore the emotional component of it, the social component of it.
Oh, explore the social and emotional component of it.
Yeah, don't be like, isn't he bad? Isn't he an arsehole?
Right. I feel like I've got to... What time is it?
So that's higher.
I've got to record.
But
this
that's, do you know what I mean? That's higher. That's the
good
beautiful thing is we look at people and go, oh, they're cutthroat. They get what they want. They just push in. They don't care. They just overrun and get screwed and they succeed in life. They don't. The higher level of succession is that we achieve together. We have strong bonds and relationships and all that stuff. The cutthroat guy who's a jerk. That pushes
Oh,
in
and is that
line.
why, like, people say, yeah, I can sort of see now how people go, oh, society's going to the dogs, or, you know, like it's all going
Yeah.
horribly because people aren't doing that anymore.
No, but we're just not. We've went for a window of not getting much practice at it, and now we've just got to keep practicing it again and bring our kids up to realise that, yeah, I remember a long time back, do you know the most beautiful bit of all of moral development goes back to a book that I mentioned, East of Eden, and people, I think some people might have read it off my rec. The whole point of that book, without ruining it, is the word timshel, and it's ancient scripture from the Bible, and it's about, its first interpretation was you have to be good, but what it really means is you have the choice of being good. And that's what we actually want to give our kids. We want them to choose being good. That's why really low-level stuff is like you have to sit at the table and you have to listen to us and you have to tell us about the story. That's fine in terms of building bonds and routines and sanctuaries for families. It doesn't elevate the morals much of the kids because they're just complying with a rule. Whereas if we explore it with them and say, how do you think that person's feeling? How do you think your actions will impact that other person? How would you feel if that was you? But not to tell them, not to have a go at them, but to explore it conversationally without judgment. That's how we elevate people. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we do it all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't do it with my kids.
Well, we fail at it with our kids. Last night, Evie, snatched a spoon off Charlie, and I almost did it. I've got to be 100% honest, I almost did it. And she wouldn't give it back to him. And I was like...
Almost did what?
What Annalise did, because I'm throwing her under the bus a bit. She wouldn't give it back to him, and I was like trying to have a conversation with her, but she wouldn't. And so she snatched it off Charlie, and so Annalise just grabbed it out of her hand.
Yeah.
Huge meltdown, like crying, distress, overwhelmed, and all this stuff. The beautiful thing was the power of that was in the recovery. Annalise was able to apologise to her and then hug her. And then she gave we had the opportunity for when Evie come down to give the spoon back to Charlie and reinforce it and praise it in her. So what kids and a lot of us go through is guilt and embarrassment around our behaviours. Winnicott, the guy who came up with good enough parenting, beautifully speaks about this. Babies, they want to bite, they want to hiss, they want to lash out, they want to act on impulses, and often they do. What we want is to show a response, ow, that hurt me. It's little babies, but then we comfort them and come back to them and show the path to recovery. If we say, ow, that hurt me, put them down and walk away and scold them and hold it against them, that we then go into the realm of shame. And shame is destructive to moral development. There's so many kids running around classrooms and society that are so stuck in shame that they've built walls up around it. No one comforts them when they've failed and shows them the path back. So they're just stuck there. And unless we learn, and this is all this stuff that's coming out at the moment about, this awful stuff that authority figures are doing to antisocial teens, without sounding too cheesy, love is what brings them back, not consequences, not punishments. We're leaving them out in the cold. And we're 48 minutes in, and I've done 2 shorts. So let's let's go. Sorry. I promise I'll be quick. Okay. I'll stop doing that.
Oh God, I've just lost the. Sorry, Billy. You've literally done 2. Yeah.
Oh
okay.
well, it's. That's why the episode went long. Nick lost his place.
Billy, as a non-parent, what can I do to help kids in the community around this?
Yeah, amazing. Just scaffold opportunities. Explore it with them. The kids you come across. Role model it really well. Role model your challenges that you have with it.
But I think, asking those questions. So the practical stuff is like, oh, why is that bad or good? Or
yeah, asking those questions, creating a safe space for them to fail at it, and then the pathway back.
Hey, Billy, how can you do it without arbitrary right or wrong messaging or shaming?
Yeah, sorry, I've jumped ahead, but yeah, what I was saying before. Yep. It's not, the kid decides what's right and wrong. We just help them find that place.
Yep. Are morals something you can learn later Or is there a cutoff?
No cutoff. Definitely can learn later. There's 17 and 18-year-olds I've met that were like that, hated everyone. I've talked about one of them in the book, trying to burn schools down. There's a pathway back. It always starts with the relationship first, though.
Relationship with?
The person. You have to guide the kid. You have to build a relationship of trust and security and unconditional love and support before you can teach anyone morals, including our own kids.
Okay. And that could be between the teacher and the student.
Yeah.
Okay. How do we teach nuance and grey area age appropriately?
Yeah. We learn it with them. But just be careful of language. The bright kids, we often expect too much of them language-wise.
Yeah.
So just learn it with them and watch them. But yeah, we don't train them. That's the important thing. And once again, I'm stealing that off Winnicott. We don't train them.
Don't train them because they've got to learn it. They've got to choose it.
Yeah, we help them choose it. Yeah.
Oh, God. I've got a question, but I'm not going to answer it because we're going to keep moving. Hey, Billy. How to help kids recognise when friends are being mean and walk away?
Yeah, so that's a bit of a self-esteem thing, which is the challenge of kids who are really altruistic. And what true altruism doesn't mean that you sacrifice yourself at a huge detriment. It just means that you share resources and that you think about others and things like that. And a lot of kids who are have high levels of empathy, there is a vulnerability that they won't put themselves first, but it's a different skill. We need to teach kids that. Yeah, and we've got along about it, so we'll go into it more then.
Okay. I'm a PE teacher. How to stop rampant cheating in games? If losing, it's flagrant cheating. God, good. Go, Billy.
Yeah.
Go.
So what's going on for the kid that happens with?
They're frustrated that they're not winning, so they want to cheat to win.
Yeah. And can you teach your kids something when they're frustrated?
Not well.
Yeah. So
Not
what do you deal with first?
Punitive punishment.
So what do you deal with first?
Oh, I don't know. In that moment, like they've just cheated. Like,
what do you need to work on before you work on them not cheating?
Well, I don't know. You got to explain the rules. Make sure that they know that there's a consequence. No,
well, I'm being a bit
consequences.
unfair.
No consequence.
I'm being a bit unfair on you, but it's their emotional development you've got to address first. So we're talking about higher order stuff. The kid
but you're not going to do that if the kid's just said, "Yeah, I've run 5 laps. I've only done 4."
Yeah. So explore why he's doing that first. The consequence, the punishment, and all that stuff. The way that you stop the cheating is you want to build a better sense of morals in the kid. But first, you have to deal with their frustration tolerance.
Yeah, so you're telling the PE teacher in that moment, you got to chat to them. You're not going to teach them anything.
Yeah, you can still have the consequence and be like, well, mate, you cheated, whatever. But, I'm going to support you and all that stuff. But you need to get to the step ahead of before he cheats and wonder why he's cheating. And then go, he's probably cheating because his frustration tolerance is low. His self-esteem is insecure, like all the kids that do that. But Evie does this. Evie sneaks off at the moment and grabs a texter and we just, we're like, oh, we haven't seen Evie for 10 minutes. And we find her and she hides under her bed covers and just covers with marker over one of her dolls. Just so she's doing it because she knows she shouldn't be doing it. She's hiding it from us and all this stuff. And whenever we find her, she screams and throws the texter across the room and all that stuff. But I understand that she's just doing that because she's testing boundaries and exploring her world and she wants to go off and do that stuff. But if that was dysfunctional, then I've got to get to the issue.
What's dysfunctional?
Cheating in a sports game in a PE class is dysfunctional. The kid who's doing that is at risk of being socially isolated because the other kids will go, screw this. This kid's a cheat. I don't want to be on his team. I don't want to be on the other team when he's playing. All of that stuff. It's a very antisocial behaviour if he's doing it.
Can you explain that to the kid?
No. No, you figure out why he's doing it first. You can, but it's not going to, if you don't address the core issue. And frustration tolerance is determined by 2 things, emotional regulation and skill acquisition.
Yeah.
So firstly, he has to be emotionally okay to lose. He's got to be able to handle that at his own cost. He's the one that lost the whole game. You want to build his tolerance and to be able to do that. You also, if he's cheating because he's the worst at basketball on the team and basketball matters to him, get him better at basketball. That's a skill acquisition component. That's where frustration tolerance comes from. There's an emotional regulation component and a skill acquisition component.
So I
talk about in the book, Evie sits there, cracks it at the Lego. I don't know if you've read that bit yet. She's trying to build a Lego airport, gets really annoyed.
Yep.
Blows up, throws Lego across the room. I sit there and I throw Lego with her because that's okay. And then what I do is build her ability to play Lego and build the airport and guide her at it, slowly get better, provide more support, hold her hand while she puts that bit in until she can do it independently. And then I help her outside of that moment with emotional regulation so that in the future, when she can't get the Lego piece in, she's got a better move and she's able to keep her cognitive capacity and not completely get overwhelmed when the Lego piece doesn't fit. But it's less likely to happen because I'm teaching her how to put the Lego in.
I was going to say, you could write a book. Yeah. That's amazing.
But
okay.
That's the point of that.
Wow. Okay. That's a very good answer.
Oh, thank you.
Well
It's
done.
been a few episodes since I got that out of here. So. We nearly scrapped the whole. I was nearly going to throw myself into traffic after the last episode. You had to talk me off a cliff. I know. Nearly went straight in the bin, so it's nice to hear that people liked it.
Last short question. What do you do when your bigger kid starts questioning your moral development?
Oh, you know, I had that as the last one because of how good it is, but I never thought you were going to mention the parking. What do you do, mate?
Well, Billy, I don't know, mate. Like, yeah, sometimes there's got to be some flex.
Yeah, what did you do? You did the right thing. What did you do?
Explain to her that in this instance, because I think that it's okay.
Did you give her space for her voice and her opinion?
Yeah, I should have asked her. Do you reckon it's okay in this instance if I just do it quickly?
Well, no, you don't need her permission.
Oh, okay.
You need her to have a voice. Our kids shouldn't control the world. They should have a voice in it. Because if she says no, what are you doing? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, we could say,
They should have autonomy.
You deliberate. I'll run inside and get the blanket.
But you want her to have a voice and increasingly autonomy. So she should get to the point where she's like, I don't think we should do this. And you go, actually, cool, okay. But in that situation, at the level she's at, she doesn't need, and it's not safe for her to have complete control.
You've got to understand, we'd been to the park. You know, we'd lost it in two places. Dad had had enough anyway. Like, we were going home. We put everything in the car and then like, oh, where's the bag? You know, the blanket baggy thing. Where's baggy? And then losing it in the back seat, screaming. Anyway, I'm just justifying why I parked illegally.
It is justified.
Should we go to the questions? Did we answer that person's question? Did we answer that person's question?
Give them space to talk about it and help them. Make that safe. Like one of the feedback things about the dad that was like, because I said so, don't do that.
Oh, yeah. No, you can't say that one.
Doesn't help them learn.
No, they don't
and
learn
it potentially risks the run of them not having a voice, like that beautiful mum described.
Yep. No, good. Sorry, I just,
Which you didn't do. You give her a voice.
Okay,
You talked to her about it.
Yeah, it helped. Yeah. And she was on board. Now I just think she's going to park illegally when she's older. And I'll probably pay parking fines for the first 3 years of her licensing. But, it's called a consequence. I'd pay parking fines to avoid that crying in the back seat. That crying in the back seat gets me when I'm driving, especially when I'm driving. Oh my God! And I just need to resolve it quick.
Yeah. Well, it's a dad that gives you some beautiful advice towards the end of this episode.
Great. Hey Billy, long questions. Hey guys, what a topic. Firstly, I appreciate you both so much for this podcast you've created. It truly has shaped my parenting. My question, I always start bubbling on a question sometimes and then they can
You don't know what's coming.
And you go, oh, right, yeah, okay. So my question for this first week's episode is regarding theory of mind. We have a 4.5-year-old and a 2-year-old. The 4-year-old is extremely hyperactive in the way she likes to play, running, jumping, which often ends in the 2-year-old getting rammed into, shoved or jumped on, and he ends up hurt multiple times during a play session. When this happens, I try to explain to her brother was injured and that isn't an enjoyable way to interact with him. That if she wouldn't want another child to play with her like that, then she should not play with her brother in that way. My question is, am I expecting too much for her age? 4.5, Billy. Can a child of her age understand that the actions can hurt others and lead to them not wanting to play with them, or are my expectations too high for her current age and stage? I worry the interactions she has with her brother will damage their relationship and also show her brother that this is an acceptable way to play with others, which is obviously not what we want him to learn. any insight would be greatly appreciated. And as I mentioned earlier, thank you all for you do and sharing your knowledge with us.
Yep, amazing. So very early development age of theory of mind. So be gentle and low expectations and help that child recognise the signs early that the other child is not enjoying it and we need to adapt, or see they are enjoying it and can you keep going? How do you know when we're doing rough play that person's liking it? All of this stuff. So you want it, that's a big component of social development, is picking up what the other person's experience is, but you got to do it gently and you got to do it scaffolded. What we often do is we come in when the fight's broken out and then we try and go back in time and go like, why shouldn't you have realised, this is too rough? Didn't you?
It's holding up a big old mirror today, aren't you?
Sorry. Yeah. But get in early. And the best way to change a behaviour is to teach your kid a better one.
Yep.
I've said that heaps, but
it's
the same.
It is. It's really good.
Yeah, but beautiful question. And no, it's not early. It's not worrying. The sibling relationship will be fine because of the way this parent talks about them and how proactive they are.
Listening to a parenting podcast.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Billy.
One.
Dear Billy and Nick, first of all, love your podcast. I love so many things about it, but what I love the most is that it's the only parenting podcast that I can listen to no matter how I feel. I feel inadequate a lot of the time because parenting is so hard and all kids deserve good parents. But no matter how hard I try, new challenges keep coming up. On some days, trying to reflect on what I could do better just sends me in a downward spiral. Your podcast is so special because it doesn't trigger me like that. You are both incredible. Your kids are so lucky to have such wonderful parents, but even you guys have your tough moments. I'm going to give this person a reflection in a second. And I think that's what keeps me going and makes me remember that I don't need to be perfect and trying my best is enough. Thank you so much for what you do and for getting me out of my hole of feeling inadequate, because we all make mistakes. And like Billy says, nothing is irreparable. To my question, I love your episode of Morals. I think I'll listen to that one quite a few more times. I have 2 children. Both struggle with executive function. My oldest is an orchid. My youngest has ADHD. I'm always aware that other things could be going on for people, causing them to do things that are not perfect. Sometimes I get told I make excuses for everybody. This causes a lot of conflict in my family because of the different needs. My daughter with ADHD needs more days at home from school because it's a lot being in that environment. My son feels resentful towards his sister because she gets whatever she wants. And my husband is worried I'm being too soft. I don't just make excuses for my daughter. When my son feels overwhelmed, I let him stay home. And when I can tell it's all a bit much for him, my husband, I'll take the kids out for the weekend by myself so he can get a break. I try to explain my reasoning, but I find that there is a lot of resentment towards siblings when I'm being too soft. My son is a 9-year-old and struggles with the theory of mind anyway, but how can I help him understand that his sister on some days is just not able to go to school or can't wear her uniform? After the podcast, I understand that my son might not be able to think that way yet, and I have expected too much from him for years. How can I meet my daughter's needs while protecting her relationship with her brother? How can I support my son to understand why there are different expectations for different kids? And how can I make sure I don't enable anybody around me to try not to try because I'm always so aware of their challenges? Sorry for the long question. Thanks so much if you have read this, and thanks again for what you do. It has changed my life for the better. Lots of love. By the way, I'm German, so you have German listeners now too. Can I just have a quick reflection? They're not asking me the question, but this parent who's like, I have downward spirals about how I'm not doing well and this and that. I've been on a parenting podcast for nearly 3 years. I came home from the pool the other day. I'd had a bit of a moment, and I opened the door and I said to Henry, they're yours for half an hour. I need time out. And I just march off. I just walked into the other room and just was like, I need this time. I go in go on the podcast, see the TikTok that you and I have started, and it's going really well, and all these people are liking and these really great comments. And I was sitting off there in the room, not parenting, because I'd had enough. Like, I know all this stuff you've taught me. I still can't handle, a bad time at the pool or a tough ride home in the car. It is so hard. Sometimes. I'm not complaining, but I'm saying just at moments, I just have that.
Yeah.
So this person just please don't get too down on yourself because I am not a perfect parent because I have a podcast is my point.
None of us are, mate. You're one of the best dads I've ever met, and I've probably met thousands of dads. One of the few wishes that I had in life, even this is me being altruistic, I wish my daughter had more time with you. That's how highly I wish I had more time with you. But if I had to choose between me having more time with you and my daughter having more time with you, I'd have my daughter having more time with you. You're a beautiful influence on kids, including your own. You're also a beautiful demonstration of how none of us can do this perfectly.
It's really hard.
Really hard. This parent talks about this idea of being too soft. There's no such thing as being too soft. A better word is sensitive. There's no such thing as being too sensitive, because being sensitive has nothing to do with not having expectations of kids, and kids will thrive and succeed more when we are soft and responsive and sensitive to their needs. This idea of being tough on them and they'll do better is wrong. And I have many, 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 many kids that I can, talk about that prove that is wrong. Tough love is not real. The other thing about this is what is a beautiful demonstration of what you're trying to take. So protect the sibling relationship, all the stuff we've talked about. Go back to siblings, was it twins? Yeah. One of the great Photoshops. And go back to, protect the relationship between them. Don't sacrifice it, all that stuff. Relationships over everything. I feel like this parent knows this. There's a difference between, being equality and equity. And that's a really big distinction in moral development.
Good one. Yeah, I love the difference between these two.
Yeah. So sometimes kids that are a bit stuck will think we all deserve the same. How come that kid gets more than me or different than me? And what we want is, once again, not to train them. We want to help them to learn why. Because we all have different needs and we all require different levels of support to succeed.
Yeah.
That's what real equity is.
Yep.
And that's what you want everyone in that family to learn. And the kid, for example, if the kid 100% school means failure, but occasional days where she gets to refuel means she succeeds, that's what she needs.
Yep.
Schools are getting better at adapting to not being so overstimulating and meeting the needs and having greater flexibility and all that stuff. So hopefully if that kid wants to be there full time, they can.
Yep. But
we just have different levels. But the whole point of this is help them understand it. Don't tell them. And that's how to do it, is show them, protect the relationships, help them learn the difference between we all get exactly the same versus actually all of us have different needs. Yeah.
Yeah. I really like that reflection around the equity versus equality. Equality versus equity. It's really good. It's important because you just need different things at different stages.
Yeah, exactly. And just helping those kids understand why and learn why and see the success that comes from it for all of us, including them, is really important.
Good stuff. Hi, Nick and Billy, or Billy and Nick.
Yeah.
You guys are awesome and full of practical advice and info. I've listened to all your pods. It's a challenge to try and fit. It's a challenge to try and fit and remember everything you guys recommend and suggest. I teach in both a primary and secondary school and have a close relationship with a 9-year-old class, a year 9 class in a flexible learning environment, which is basically means we have a spicy neurodiverse cohort ranging from kids with troubled home lives, anxiety, depression, gender fluidity, and a range of autism spectrum disorders. I have a question that I'm not sure has an answer. This recent episode has really struck a chord with some challenges we're currently facing with Year 9s. This class has students that struggle to even tolerate others, and we have resorted to separating kids. that are friends to try and maintain a level of respect for the class as a whole. The problem is there is a number of kids that have no idea of the impact their behaviour is having on others. They just can't seem to see it from others' perspective. Here's what we know. This is a long game. Get down to the kids' level, communicate one-on-one, which is great and respectful. Bring the kids in to help solve, etc., etc. I'm trying not to say blah, blah, blah. We know this works down the track, and by year 11, the kids are great. But what can we do now? How do we solve the issue in the class in the moment? Or philosophy is that kids that feel safe and secure will learn. Our philosophy is that kids will feel safe and secure and learn, and anxious kids won't. So our focus is having a class environment that has less stress, but it feels impossible. We have kids answer back, snipe at others, disrupt, swear, slam books, and so on. How can we help them understand the impact of this behaviour? How it feels for others? Sorry, this has become quite long. Thanks again for your great work. Hope to see you on the running track sometime. Take care of yourselves. I'll only be seeing you on that running track, Billy.
Yeah. Just to run with you a bit.
Let's not cover that off today.
Beautiful question. Amazing teacher. Mate, I phoned a friend for this one late last night. I was like, this question's going to make the cut. And I sent a message. You've met him, one of my mates, who's a principal at one of the most disadvantaged schools in Melbourne. Yeah. He's phenomenal. It's really funny. I go to the gym with him, and I got to know him, and he's an amazing human. But he's like this, as you know. He's like good-looking, tough-looking Aussie bloke. Mm-hmm. He's got one of the best levels of emotional intelligence that I've ever met. He's a sensitive, beautiful man. And I sent it to him. I sent him that question exactly as you just read it and said, no pressure to answer, but what do you think? His first answer, bring back the cane. And I said, can I quote you? And his name is... No, but this is the answer he gave, and I just want to read it out because it's beautiful, and he even touches on some stuff we've already talked about because this is how well this principal knows the evidence. It sounds like they're doing a fantastic job and understand the importance of creating a safe classroom and the student-teacher relationship. The biggest predictor of social-emotional development, academic trajectory, and all that stuff is not the curriculum, it's the relationship that kids have with their teachers. You're experiencing this now. How important is the relationship your kid has with the teacher? Huge, isn't it? Because they feel safe and secure, they feel valued, they feel like it's a safe place for them to challenge things, to make mistakes, to make failures. Really important. So that's amazing that he said that. And just off the cuff, he said it as well. My long-term advice would be to develop their understanding of the multi-tiered system of support, an inclusive, data-driven, evidence-based framework designed to improve outcomes holistically for all students, especially their Tier 1 intervention, which is what the teacher was saying. Yep. In short term, though, I have 3 suggestions. 1, develop classroom expectations, structures and routines with their students. With is the important bit there. Yep. Using positive reinforcement of behaviours and reteaching class expectations, structures and routines when necessary. 2, teaching and using self and co-regulation strategies. See Berry Street education model. People who will know Berry Street, they're phenomenal. Massive shout out to one of the best organisations in the world in this space. Tom and I have been speaking about how Guiding Growing Minds and Berry Street are going to collaborate, which is really exciting. And then 3, having and setting high expectations increases the likelihood that students will meet or exceed those expectations as they encourage students to learn, take responsibility for their actions, and understand the consequences of their behaviour. I always believe that students want a fair classroom. If they perceive the classroom as unfair, they find it harder to navigate and understand expectations. Amazing, isn't it? Yeah. Students need a clear roadmap to navigate the learning space and what's expected daily with clear and consistent expectations. The other side of this is that students need to understand the difference between equity and equality, which is what we've already spoken about. This can be challenging to explain to a student that sometimes other students may need more time or support than them. This is what the multi-tiered system is so important for because students know the difference between whole class interventions and group individual interventions. Lastly, teachers need to understand that we have tiered interventions, not tiered students. He's amazing, isn't he? Hope that helps.
He's amazing. One thing I heard a couple of times in there was like clearly mapping or setting standards, like this is what we're trying to achieve. Here's the roadmap of what we're trying to achieve. Here's what we expect. Like I think,
And you decide together,
yeah,
and we can achieve this because we want to,
Yep.
and because we were all hugely capable.
yep. Oh, he's great.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Also twice as strong as me and can run at the same speed as me, so it's
not
embarrassing.
It doesn't matter. It's fine.
It does to me. That's
I know, but you're not very competitive.
we digress.
We digress. Yeah, good stuff. Hi, Nick and Dr. Billy. I don't know why I keep hitting the greeting every time I'll stop. Everyone's like, yeah, mate, just keep going.
I remember I used to want me to cut out the complimentary stuff and just include the question, but you've just given up on pushing me back.
It's the communications editor in me that's like, cut, we don't need to be told. And then you're like, yes, leave it. I've been listening for about 8 months or so and have learned so much from you both. I truly appreciate all the time and effort you put into the podcast. It has had a huge it has been a huge encouragement to me as a parent. And thank you to this whole community for sharing vulnerable questions and reflections. I have an almost 2.5-year-old boy. He is smart, creative, sweet, imaginative, and very affectionate. He has a great sense of humour, is advanced verbally, and has a pretty good understanding of complex ideas for his age. He also has a sensitive temperament and is slow to warm up to new people, especially other kids. It is a difficult time when there are lots of kids running around and especially on the playground. By the way, thank you so much for talking about how much playgrounds can be a challenge. I had no idea this was so common and thought it was only my kid who had a hard time. I'm a stay-at-home mum and he is currently an only child and we don't have any other family around. We have moved several times early in his life due to my husband's job, but we don't plan to be moving again and hopefully have settled down now. Without having a lot of community and family nearby, it has been a challenge for him to be around the same kids on a frequent basis. So he really gets to know them and become comfortable enough to let them get in his personal space. He goes to church, childcare a few times a month and the library story time almost weekly, but it seems like there are always different kids each time we go. He has made slow but steady progress playing around other kids. This is largely due to the encouragement and guidance from listening to the podcast. I give this background because I often worry that his slow to warm up nature holds him back from developing empathy and taking the emotional and sometimes physical risk to learn other kids' perspectives. I went back and listened to the episode on imaginary friends and risk-taking to learn more. I was encouraged because at home he will show signs of developing empathy and seeing others' perspectives. He will show me things he knows I like. Kiss a boo-boo, recently kissed a mosquito bite when I said how I was itching, made the itching worse, but it was a sweet gesture. Bring me a small stroller fan when I say I'm hot. Rub my back lately after telling him I like it and it makes me happy. He's such a sweet, affectionate boy. My concern is that he doesn't do these things around other kids. He will verbalise when he sees kids fall down, cry, be loud, etc., but he will not want to go near them. He's very sensitive to others' emotions. He's reserved to start out with, so when others have heightened emotions, he is even more hesitant. I worry that this is holding him back from developing a deeper understanding and connection with others and will limit his social development. My husband and I try to model empathy and good morals as much as we can, so we are slowly building more community in the area and he will be we are slowly building more community in this area and he will be going to a 2-day-a-week half-day preschool in the fall. I'm hoping this will help because he will be able to see the same kids on a regular basis and become more comfortable around them. Thank you for taking the time to read this. You are really changing lives.
Yeah, amazing. What a beautiful kid. I love that bit about the mosquito bite.
Made it worse.
But yeah, no, there's no worry. And it's interesting, the slow to warm up stuff. We talk about boys and dandelions and orchids a lot, but some researchers took that theme and did some more research and found there was a middle ground of kids that are slow to warm up and called them tulips. So this slow to warm up temperament is really common and it's not a worry. Person's doing the right thing, you know, when autumn comes or fall, as they say in the States. the social opportunity will be there.
Yeah.
And that's what you want, is you just want to gently keep giving them the opportunity to feel comfortable and confident in those social relationships where they can have that. This kid has got a high level of empathy. So where do they have opportunities to have that as an outlet and succeed in it? And a lot of the steps we know are, how do we provide responsive, consistent support around these kids? How do we give them guidance and understanding and that instructional component of it, of like, you know, go over and say hi to that kid, you know, what might be going on for them, all that perspective taking stuff that we've talked about. And then the reinforcement component of it, make them feel good about who they are because of that stuff. It's really important, but I'm not worried about this kid at all because they've actually demonstrating they've got a really high level. In a few questions, we'll see a kid who's, you know, twice the age of that kid, even more, I think, and who's way, way, way below them. And so this kid is actually operating at a really high level, just needs a bit more opportunity.
Okay, great. Got a few long ones left, Billy. Hello, Nick and Billy. Thank you again for a great episode. I'm going to throw out another film genre for you. I think Jerry Maguire is actually a sports comedy drama.
So I love that there's a few people that are in the film bit.
I feel like the episode is so timely as I've recently been faced with a challenging issue with my son and his interactions with others, which are definitely in the realm of morals and values. Everything I'm trying to help the situation doesn't seem to be working, but maybe I'm expecting too much. Here's a scenario. My 4-year-old son's best friend is a beautiful 4-year-old girl. They met each other in the toddler room at daycare a couple of years ago and have been inseparable ever since. Both are only children, so they are somewhat of a sibling relationship. They are both at 4-year-old kinder together now and have one day together and one day apart. We often catch up with them on the weekends. They will also be going to the same primary school next year. 2 weeks ago, I went to pick up my son from kinder and it was only my boy and his best friend left at the end of the day. Her mum was there chatting with the kindergarten teacher and they brought me into the conversation. During the day, my little boy and his best friend had been playing together with another little boy who happens to be my son's best friend on the day he isn't at kinder. Anyway, came over to them and asked if he could play with them. Apparently, my son and his best friend both said to the little boy, no, and they did not like him. The kinder teacher is concerned about the level of possessiveness of other children, as well as their inability to include others when they are together. The kinder teacher also spoke to me about how my son likes to control the content of the play and has described him as a boss of play. When I talked to my little boy about it, he was able to talk about how saying what he said might have been I will start that again. When I talked to my little boy about it, he was able to talk about how saying what he said might have made his other friend feel and how he would feel in a similar situation. He also talked about how he has 2 best friends and that his female best friend doesn't like it when he plays with others, so it seems he might feel stuck in the middle sometimes. Moral dilemma right there. We have spoken about taking turns during play and listening to others' ideas. From listening to this episode, some of the ideas and associated skills, the beginning of developing morals. So, my questions. How much can I expect from a 4-year-old, almost 5, when it comes to including others and listening to others' ideas? What can I do to assist them through the period and move forward on his moral journey? Some of the things I've been trying to include, he and I are taking turns choosing what we play with. I've been talking to my son about when I feel like he is telling me how much to play and that it's okay for me to play differently, as well as how it makes me feel when he's telling me when he's telling me what to do. I've also been exploring with him about how he might be able to play with both of his friends together. I do provide him with praise when he does something well, like sharing, but I probably use this too much and don't want to balance it with encouraging. But I probably use this too much and don't balance it with encouraging him to improve in some areas. Listening to the reward and consequences section of the episode made me think about the imbalance I might have in this. I'm going to have to go back and listen to the end of the episode again to where Dr. Billy wraps up. with some strategies for each age group in assisting moral development. Thank you again for a great episode and another great analysis of a great film.
Yeah, what do you think about that? Like 2 kids excluding one and being a bit hurtful.
Yeah, it's really tough to hear a kid doing that. I'd find that tough.
2 great parents, though. The educator feels comfortable bringing it up with them.
Amazing. Yeah, that's tough to hear.
What would you do? One of the girls.
I'd probably just provide a couple more opportunities and support them when doing it. So if maybe have that kid over again if you've got the capacity to have the kid to the park and watch them all play together and try and encourage them to make it work a bit more. It's probably what I'd do.
Beautiful. How would you do that? Can you give me more on it?
I'd just reach out to the other mum.
So the 2 are very good at playing together?
Yeah.
So they don't need any help with that? What
No,
do they need
I'd
help
get
with?
the 3rd kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Have the 3 of them go to a park where I'm actually there and
Yeah.
help scaffold. If I was really worried about this, parents obviously won't enough to write an email about it. So, yeah.
Yeah. And if they're in Melbourne, when are you available?
No, that's what I'd do. I think I've been through this cycle and frankly I should just still kind of be in it of what this parent's doing around the play stuff as well, the sharing. Because I've got one kid that likes to really own the play and some people think it's great, but I'm like, I think needs to learn how to give others opportunities. I think my kid's going to be a teacher. That's what I've actually arrived at because they like running our class and generally do a really good job and encouraging. They really model hard off their teacher.
Yeah. It's beautiful. So that's the thing, isn't it? Like it's a beautiful demonstration of what with this. You do not want to push down the friendship that they both have.
No.
You don't want to push down the quality in one of your kids.
No.
What you want to do is go, there's a bit of a skill gap though when a 3rd kid comes in.
Yep.
The parent's doing this amazing stuff one-on-one with the kid. Like, actually, I want to play this. Like, this is how it makes me feel. That's beautiful. The next step is what you're talking about. Bring the other kid in and scaffold. Because it's too much of a stretch. This amazing educator can't be on top of these kids all the time and catch it before they go, no, we don't want you to play. We don't like you. But you need to get there before that. It's gone. The opportunity's gone. It's too hurtful for that other kid. He's not going to want to stay there then. And you've unintentionally reinforced it as well because both those kids want to just play with the 2 of them. So what's happened is saying, no, we don't want you to play. We don't like you. They've succeeded in getting what they want, haven't they? What you want them to do is to build a different skill to get what they want, which was to keep enjoying each other. Yeah. But this is how to bring this kid in and you'd have heaps of fun. And I'm going to scaffold whatever it takes for that to occur. And that's exactly what you're talking about. So, yeah, I'll reply back with your details so that they can drop the 3 kids off at Uncle Nick's.
I dare them. Wild West, just lock them in the trampoline.
The zip-up trampoline.
Zip-up trampoline. There you go, kids.
Mad Max Thunderdome.
Yeah, pretty much how I roll, Billy. Keep going.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful for you to
go. First of all, I just want to say how much I love the pod. Parenting these days can make you feel so isolated, especially when you're the first of your friends to have kids like me. But being in the PCP community makes me feel like I'm part of something amazing. I learned so much from both of you, and I know I'm a better parent for listening to your words of wisdom. Thank you for the hard work. You make a huge difference to the lives of parents and their beautiful kids. I just finished listening to episode 89 on moral development, another cracker, and I found myself reflecting on my own childhood. I went to an all-girls school, and let me tell you, teenage girls are mean. I had a hard time with bullies and friends who became bullies. Fitting in was tricky, and while I eventually found my people, for a while there, I had many girls single me out and be really unkind to me for no other reason than I was a bit of a dork. When I would come home and try to tell my mum about this, she would immediately jump in to telling me that I was probably misinterpreting the other girls and they wouldn't have wanted to hurt my feelings, and I don't know what's going on for them at home, and I should try to be more understanding. I believe she was also well-intended, and I knew then and know now that empathy is so important and that trying to understand someone else's perspective can really open up my eyes. But in these moments, it just made me feel unheard, misunderstood and more alone. It's exactly... I'll cover it at the end. Anyway, my question is, in these kind of situations where perhaps our kids are on the receiving end of some unkindness or poor behaviour, how do we simultaneously support them and make them feel seen and heard while also fostering a sense of empathy and understanding? I think both things are really important and valuable, but I remember how it felt having my own feelings pushed aside to focus on the feelings of those being mean to me, and it wasn't nice. I also wonder if it contributed to some of my somewhat problematic people-pleasing tendencies, whereby I tend to shove my own feelings aside to accommodate the feelings of others. Not the healthiest. My kids are only young, 2.5 and 6 months old, but I have already caught myself doing similar things to the toddler. If he has a friend over and the friend pushes him or snatches a toy or in some way upsets him, after comforting him, making sure he's okay, I always go with the line, he didn't mean it. I wonder if this is helpful or not. Thank you guys for phenomenal work. For once, I'm grateful to the Instagram algorithm for bringing PCP to my attention. Sorry, I cut in halfway through the question. I was like, oh, good God. What her mum used to do is probably what I would do in the moment, if I'm honest. And I know now a little bit more to be asking questions, validate feelings, learn a bit more about it. But I can see, not cutting a mum slack, but I'm like, I could see how you quickly just default to that.
So what always comes first? What comes before thinking about the other person's feelings?
How the kid felt.
Yeah, validating their feelings. So you can't get someone to think about someone else's feelings if you ignore theirs.
Yep.
So we connect. We use that emotional difficulty to connect. The story of Evie with the spoons, she was able to give back the spoon to Charlie when her own feelings were validated and acknowledged, and she had help in resolving them. We just started with, how do you think Charlie feels? He's just had it snatched. We're missing a step. There's no lesson in it, and the only reason she'll do it is that low-level stuff that Kohlberg talked about of just consequences. I'll get sent to bed, I won't get dessert or whatever, so that's why I'll give the spoon back. We role model thinking about other people's emotions by showing kids that we're aware of theirs and that they're valid, and we want to help them travel through those feelings successfully.
So, silly question, is it more about like, why do you want the spoon, or what do you like about the spoon?
Yeah, what's going on for you that you wanted that?
So what do you say to Evie in that moment?
Yeah, that must be hard. You want the spoon.
Why do you want
it? Talk her through it. Well, not even that. She's 3, so it's really just going, I can tell that you want the spoon, but at the start you chose this one. It's okay to be frustrated. We'll ask you again tomorrow, and tomorrow if you want the spoon, that's okay. Now, she still blows up. You give her some space to deal with it and stuff, but then I'm going to very quickly give her an opportunity to succeed at acknowledging at a very low-level expectation that this is hard for Charlie. And often, if I'm honest, I go there before she does, and start praising her and doing all that stuff. We've talked about that a lot in the past. So, that's great. Good on you, Evie. You're such a superstar. Look at Charlie's already lighting up because he's excited to have his big sister give the spoon back to him and all of that stuff. She starts moving towards it. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm giving her the path. She's already sensing how good she's going to feel about herself.
How you give them the path.
Yeah. So I'm just saying stop doing that. Don't do that. Think of Charlie. How would Charlie feel? She's 3 and she's like, wants the spoon is the most important thing in the world in that moment and her having it. It's the same as her talking about when she was a kid. What her mum has this beautiful second step has completely missed the first one. It must be really hard for you to experience that at school. It must have felt awful. I'd imagine you're feeling really isolated. I'm imagining you're feeling like you don't fit in. Is that how it is? Because I adore you. I think you're the most amazing, beautiful person I've ever met, and I feel like it's a privilege to have you in my life, and I hope you feel like that everywhere. But maybe you don't feel like that at school when that's happening to you. You don't go anywhere near onto what's happening for the other kid, or maybe they didn't think about your feelings and all that stuff until you've done that and you've nailed it. And you're having a conversation, the person's calm and regulated and feels validated. And you don't always go to the second step either. But sometimes you go to the second step and help them learn perspective. But it sounds clearly like this kid, who's a parent now, was probably operating at a pretty high level of empathy. So we're actually just, teaching them a skill they're already nailing. We do that a lot with kids. When they're good at something, we just keep hammering it. But actually what we needed to do is give this kid a chance to stick up for themselves. We do this with Evie. People have heard me talk about worrying about her, especially with little boys. I'm going on to the Imperfects in a couple of weeks to talk about, masculinity and how we need to guide kids better. boys, not girls. Like most of the weight falls on people raising girls, which is infuriating. We used to read this book, like we still read it. It's called The Line Inside. I don't get it cut, but it's a good book. I only get 15% of my own book and 0 of A Line Inside. But so the funny thing is the whole point of the story is this mouse who feels really nervous and shy and wants to find their roar. And so they go and approach a lion and say, teach me how to roar. And they become friends. But when he's getting pushed around a bit now, she just roars at kids. She's like... like that, and it's so funny that I need to now elevate her ability to communicate. No, I don't want that. Don't teach me. Don't push me or whatever. But she just roars, and it's that's what this parent needed to focus a little bit on the bit the kid was struggling with, not the bit the kid was actually nailing, which was perspective taking and all that stuff. Anyway, amazing story.
Good stuff. I love it. Dear Nick and Billy, thanks again for another awesome episode and excellent movie choice. The episode on moral development felt very timely after an incident with my 4-year-old last week. Not sure if this is the type of question you are looking for, but would love some feedback on how I might have handled the situation if I had my time again. In particular, I worried that my response was not appropriate for my kiddo's age and development stage. Here goes. We live in a busy intersection, and my 4-year-old has noticed a man standing at the lights with a sign on several occasions. She became curious about what the sign said and why he was standing there. I answered honestly that he was letting people know that he was homeless and would appreciate any money people might be able to spare. This led to lots of questions about why someone might end up without fixed accommodation, why people weren't stopping to help him, and how he might get assistance. He was particularly curious about why people weren't stopping to help. We ended up talking about the difference between helping someone for today and helping in the bigger picture. We discussed the role of charities, health services, policymakers. I was mentally exhausted after all of this, but thought at the time that if she could ask the questions, I should answer them. Once we got home, she told her dad and grandparents about what we had seen and our discussion. Her retelling demonstrated she had good grasp of the concept we had talked about. Instead of she needed lots of reassurance that the man would be okay and asked everyone about ways we could help him. For the next couple of days, she intermittently checked in with us, including waking us at 3 a.m. on one occasion to ask if she was right in thinking she would always be okay herself because she can live with us for as long as she needs to. We reassured her that we'll never stop loving her and will always support her. To give her a sense of empowerment, we also looked at local charities with her and are volunteering at some community centres to help pack care packages for disadvantaged families. She seems reassured for now and hasn't mentioned it further, but I'm anxious that what we discussed was too much for her age, given how worried she became for her own security. I remember being told as a kid not to give money to people who are asking for assistance as they would likely waste it on drugs, and I didn't want her to grow up hearing similar things. I think that in my need for her not to hear the same negative attitudes that I did as a kid, I rushed to give her too much information. Volunteering is probably partly to ease my own guilt about not doing more to help, but figure it doesn't hurt. It's so hard to find the right balance between helping our kids feel safe while giving them the tools and morals they need to navigate an at times unjust world. Love everything you do. Best wishes.
Amazing. What do you think about that?
Yeah, incredible. Like, navigated it. Like, love that she had the reflection, like, wow, I didn't want to do what I did as a kid. Just trying to make it a bit better, a bit more understandable. Tough. Like, tough to navigate. Obviously tough for the individual at the other end of the intersection. I get all that, but it's like, like tough to navigate. And if you're not ready for those combos, which I wouldn't be, it's truth.
Yeah, and the kid decides whether we've given them too much information, and you find the pathway to recovery. Like, and I'm not saying this parent has, because I think it sounds like there's a really healthy discussion in a kid that's got a huge strength in empathy, but also just like is quite intellectual about thinking about all this stuff. The beautiful thing about coming at 3 a.m. and saying, like, am I always going to have a house? Then you show them that they're safe and understand that they're having this inner turmoil about it. But beautiful example. And it's also really a great demonstration of, like, what do we do about it? So what I mean by that is that demonstration of what we do about it is really important, that we help kids with this. And a few years ago, and this is going to sound like I'm saying I'm a hero, but hear the second bit of it. A few years ago, I had no one to hang out with at Christmas, and Elise kept having runs of like working at Christmas, and I just was feeling so sorry for myself. So I tried to find some places to volunteer on Christmas Day. And it's actually the beautiful thing about society, which gives me hope. It's actually really hard to get into any of them.
Yep.
So I got into one, and I went like 3 or 4 years in a row, and Elise just kept working on Christmas, and I just had no one else to hang out with. So I went to this place. The beautiful thing is there was like 2 different types of groups of people there that were in this like church giving out Christmas dinners or Christmas lunches. There were these like tradie men that were all like in their footy kit kind of stuff, dishing out food to homeless people, and then families with young kids. And it was this beautiful demonstration that this mum's thinking about as well, of how can I give them an action? And the action is important. Now, I was doing that because I needed to for me. It was a really selfish thing. I needed to for me. It helped me feel like a good person. I wasn't stuck in the turmoil of looking around on Christmas Day and going, I'm on my own. You know, it gave me an opportunity to look and think about other people. And also, you know, I needed that to feel good about myself. And Elise, like, will hate me saying this, but the busiest person I know, she volunteers every couple of weeks in a community friend program. She's doing that intrinsically for her. She doesn't need any external validation. Now, that's what we want our kids to have. We want this kid to be doing it intrinsically. So you give them the pathway and the opportunity to be volunteering and doing all that stuff, so that when they have that inner turmoil, not so much about, am I going to be safe, but what can we do for that other person? And not saying don't give them money because they'll just use it on drugs, but saying that's really hard. That person doesn't deserve to be there. We're in a privileged position, and this is what we do to help with it. Is a beautiful way to take a kid to a really, really, really the highest level. The 4th bit of feedback I gave, really worried about society has given up on like that really highest upper echelon of moral development, Martin Luther King that I was talking about last time. That's how you do it. Give kids the opportunity to have conversations about it, and then the action. The action is really important. In today's world, there's a lot of like talking and signaling that I care about this stuff, not a lot of action. So how do we, and that's because we're all overwhelmed and all that stuff, but how do we give kids a pathway to action? And that's why I love that question.
Yeah, ripper.
Nice.
I like the direction.
Yeah, give them a direction, give them guidance.
Yeah.
In doing something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Billy, last question.
Last question.
This is it. Hey, dear Billy and Nick, thank you for all the wisdom and honesty you guys bring to the world. The way you explain parenting and relationships in general is such a breath of fresh air and aligns with how well I feel as a teacher to a fantastic group of students and as a mum to 2 incredible teenagers. Your episode on morality has really hit a tender spot in me, and my question is a personal one. You see, I had my kids young, and there were no podcasts or knowledge about this parenting stuff. To say I struggled when my kids were little is an understatement. Even though I had training in child development, understanding my own attachment style and triggers did not happen until I think it may be too late. I am worried that I have messed up, and my action and lack of understanding of this has impacted my son in the way he behaves now as a 16-year-old. Didn't help that when he was little, the relationship I had with their dad was extremely volatile. This relationship ended when my son was 10 in a blaze of domestic violence and dramas that took over 2 years to resolve. My son saw and heard too much. I was not present enough for him. He reacted by making poor choices at school, with his friends group, and generally getting into trouble, stealing, bullying people online, and getting into rages at home. Instead of dealing with these things calmly and compassionately, I was angry a lot, and I shut down so many conversations that I should have had. Fast forward 4 years, we're in a much more settled environment. I've done a lot of learning about my own attachment style and how I need to respond to my kids when they're struggling. Every day, I try to get some connection with my son, and I'm constantly attempting to repair all the hurt from the past. My son doesn't display the same extreme behaviours as he did when he was 12, but his behaviour still worries me, and I am unsure how to help him get unstuck. It seems to me that he's extremely avoidant, as he completely shuts down if something happens that brings on any feelings. He just doesn't want to talk about things and spends most of his time on his phone watching videos. He also displays very little empathy or any awareness of how of other people's feelings. Some examples that indicate this. Last week, when I dropped a heavy saucepan on my foot while he was in the kitchen, he just watched me hop around trying to clean up the mess whilst crying because I was in pain. He recently went out with a girl and it ended badly because she told him some personal information and he told all of his friends about it. When he was confronted about it and shown screenshots of his messages to his friends, his sister knows the girl in the questions, he denied it, said she had faked the messages. He refused to discuss how the girl might be feeling. He regularly lies to us about things that have or have not happened and seems confused when we explain that telling the truth is important to build trust. At school, he often gets his phone confiscated and can't seem to understand why this rule is in place despite me trying to explain it on multiple occasions. If he gets caught with his phone again this year, he will be suspended. He gets confrontational when we try to explain the purpose of rules and consequences in general. It is very difficult to get him to do anything around the home. My real issue is that he won't talk about this with me or anyone else. I suggest to get him to communicate anything about I struggle to get him to communicate anything about his life. He says that he does not see a problem when we try to gently broach things that have happened. I am always aware that I need to try and see the function of his behaviour. So I ask him what is going on for him to try and not seem like I'm accusing him all the time. When I try and engage him in discussions about real-world issues to draw out his opinion on things, he gets flippant and says he doesn't know or care. Can you give me some advice to get a shut-down, avoidant 16-year-old to engage in life and understand how his behaviour has an impact on the world? I worry that he will struggle with relationships because he can't see other people's perspectives and fails to understand why it is important that he does. Have I messed it up beyond repair? Much love to you both, a worried mum.
What do you think?
It's tough. This is so far out of my realm of parenting right now. I hear about teenagers are really tough and they become avoidant and don't want to talk, but I can't picture it right now because my girls are so small. I'm like, how does this happen? Like,
yeah.
And it just happened. Like everyone I know is like, oh, you got 2 daughters. That's going to be tough. I'm like, is it? I don't know. But I, learn to take on other people's opinions with a pinch of salt sometimes. But this to me is like, it's almost living with an adult at 16 and they don't want to talk to you and I can't.
What's the difference between an adult and a 16-year-old?
Oh, not a whole lot, is there? I don't know.
They're about 10 years short of fully developing their frontal lobe, which is where all their higher order functioning stuff comes, including moral development, perspective taking, all that stuff.
Okay.
There's another reason this kid's struggling with it, though.
Why?
Because they've been traumatised.
Yeah.
So they would meet lots of kids like this in clinic, lots of teens, especially boys. They built walls around them because of the trauma they've experienced. Relationships were not always a source of safety and predictability, and so they've shut out relationships. They've got a very superficial level. That's why he can be in a relationship with a girl, but that's why he isn't understanding of what things might hurt their feelings and what might be destructive to that. There's heaps in this one. We talked about the highest order is that anti-establishment. We don't just have to comply with every rule and thinking about everything's not black and white. That's Kohlberg's highest order that we're all trying to achieve. Not many of us get there. The important thing is that a lot of teens that are anti-establishment are not doing it for that reason. They're doing it because they're stuck and it's this kind of aggressive outlet of screw the system, screw the world, screw everything. And that's a common teenager that's been left out is like, stuff you all then. I'll get out ahead of it and stuff school, stuff the teachers, stuff the principal. This is what I did. I was like this. I was not operating at such a high moral that I thought that. I just thought I deserved better and that everyone could go get stuffed. That was a low level because of some of the stuff I'd experienced. This kid is the same. It's about how do we... this mum needs to park this. I want them to understand real world stuff. I want them to understand that and build the relationship back with them. They're doing that. That's why he's doing better now. But just prioritise that. Just put on hold the relationship's about, how do you think that other person felt? Do you realise what's going on in the world? All of that stuff. Because you've got to build the foundational stuff in this kid first, him feeling safe and secure and valued, and then having times where you have conversations with him 99% of the time that are not putting pressure on him, not saying he needs to be a better person, he needs to take perspectives of others and all that stuff. That's why, because he just hears it and goes, Mum's coming over. What have I done wrong this time? What do I need to work on? Who have I hurt? How have I stuffed up? The other thing is we've got to try really hard not to back kids into a corner. The highest level of like moral development and cognitive thinking really is I might be wrong. I meet kids in their late teens all the time that have never been wrong in their life because it's too vulnerable. They know everything.
Yeah.
That person's lying, that person's making it up. No, I'm always right, because they can't open that door. And if we back them into a corner and say you're definitely wrong, they'll just dig in further. So we've got to give them a pathway out when they're calm, when they're settled in relationships where they feel safe and secure, to think, hang on, maybe I did do the wrong thing. That's where growth comes from, doesn't it? Maybe I stuffed up. If I butt heads with you, Annalise, whatever, if I just dig in and go, she's wrong, Nick's wrong, I'm not going to get any better at anything. If I go, hang on a second, maybe what I said was misinterpreted, I wasn't thinking about their feelings, whatever. But like we've talked about before, I have to address my own feelings first.
Yeah.
I'm frustrated, I'm exhausted, I feel like I'm not being heard, I feel like I'm doing everything at the house, whatever. And then I can get to the point where I'll be like, actually, no, Annalise is doing most of it, and she must be frustrated with me. So it's a really important bit. I want to read 3 things, if that's okay.
Yeah.
They'll be quick. 3 bits of feedback. And I just want to ask you about what you think about all of them. Hey, Nick and Billy. Long-time road rager, but fairly new listener. I was always someone who had very little patience and tolerance when I would get behind the wheel. Not sure why, but all of a sudden when I'm in a rush, I become a horrible person. After listening to your Jerry Maguire episode, I'm starting to understand why that might be. Since I've become a dad, I've curbed my language, but my attitude during driving has remained, and I can see that I've passed on this frustration to my kids, especially during a drive when all of a sudden I hear the cute little voice of my 2-year-old saying, "Come on, lady, I don't have all day." I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. I've recently adopted a new mindset which has helped. The mindset is, give the other person the most compassionate backstory you could possibly give them. I can't begin to tell you how powerful this is. Now when I see another driver doing something that would frustrate me, I say to myself and to my kids, maybe they're rushing to get to the hospital because their little baby is sick. Or maybe they're driving slow because they're playing I Spy with their kids. Mm-hmm. This simple trick or life hack has immensely helped me with my road rage and has helped my 5-year-old understand empathy. Thought I'd share this with you, Nick. Try it and let me know how you go. Thanks for everything both you and Billy do for us parents. My wife is an avid listener and the one who got me onto these podcasts. Looking forward to learning more over the years. Please don't give up on us. Jesus, I struggled to read that last bit of that.
Yep.
2 to go.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
I'll take that on. I've got a road trip this weekend. So
It's beautiful though, isn't it?
great advice.
Yeah,
Love it.
Really practical.
Yeah, really
It's like
practical.
you and the listeners are probably the best people giving practical stuff. Yeah,
That's good. I
better
like
than
it.
me.
Thank you.
Yeah, so wonderful, wonderful advice. Hi, Nick and Billy. Long-time listener, first-time emailer. Over the past few months, I've felt compelled to give you this feedback, but a busy mum and 2 small boys makes time hard. Not only am I a mum, but I'm a paramedic working in Queensland. Your podcast has not only been an amazing resource for parenting, but so much is applicable to my job. A few months ago, I attended a teenage boy. The boy was in a care facility for which he shared with other children and full-time carers. As most kids in this situation, he had a very traumatized childhood. Following an argument with a fellow teen resident, he experienced some big emotions. Unknowing how to process these big emotions, his automatic reaction was to attempt to suicide. He was 14. Thankfully, his carer found him and intervened before any significant harm was done. This was not a regular thing for him. On our arrival, he was sitting in front of his Xbox, obviously upset. It was blasting so loud and he was not wanting to engage with us. My working partner's reaction was to want to switch off the power to the house as a way to get his attention. I quickly intervened and stated I didn't think this was a good idea, as to me it appeared that he was using this Xbox game as a way to distract or regulate himself following what he'd just done, and I thought if we disrupted this at the wrong moment, it could make him very angry, which wouldn't help anyone. The advice was taken well and we let him finish his game. Once he did, he put the control down and appeared more open to engaging with us. By this time, police had also arrived. They immediately took a very authoritarian approach, which didn't seem to be helping, only aggravating, and my colleagues were planning a sedation, thinking this would be the only possible route. In the back of my mind, I had your voices saying connection and validation. I sat down in front of him. I asked him questions about him, what he'd like to do, what he was good at. I validated his feelings, I talked through the events of the day, and I put the questions back on him as to how this should go. He engaged with me, he opened up, and I think I helped him get out of his fight or flight response. This poor child was so overwhelmed by his feelings that harming himself was an automatic reaction to escape them. Following this approach, and with some help from his carers, we managed a trip to the hospital without any force or sedation, completely compliant. While waiting with him, we laughed, we played drawing games, he even tried to draw my portrait, actively seeking engagement from me. I genuinely enjoyed his company. He was a beautiful, kind boy. We were able to give him a good experience with the system, which I hope that if next time he reached this same point that he would be more willing to ask and accept our help. Not only am I so thankful for you both on my parenting journey, but you've completely changed my approach to my paediatric patients. I feel both myself and my patients are having more positive interactions with the service. We don't get the beauty of time for connections, but a large portion of the patients I see in this setting are just so desperate for any connection, and I'm thankful to be able to give that to them. Once again, thank you so much for what you do, and please never stop. I recommend you to all my friends, colleagues and families, even those without kids. Whew. Amazing.
How good's that?
Amazing. And I meet those kids in clinic, and yeah, paramedics are phenomenal. They do more with less out of all of the medical professionals out there. All right, I've got one last thing. One last thing. I haven't let you read this intentionally.
Do you want me to read it? No,
I'll do it, but I'll struggle with it. It's because it's to give you something. Started the episode by giving you a beautiful T-shirt that a fan had given you. This is a message I'm going to struggle to read. When I was on the beach on my own about a week ago, I was sitting there with Charlie asleep on me, and Elisa just ducked off to go to a market with Evie, and I just checked my emails and got this email. I'm only going to read one tiny bit of it that's about you, but I was sitting on this beach, it's a tropical location, having a beautiful time, just weeping at this email this person sent to me. It's one of the greatest privileges to have been part of this podcast community, and what this person sent to me, though, probably will never understand the impact it had on me, but I just wanted to read out a short section of it. I'm going to try and choke through it. But essentially they're giving me, I got to read it to you, just giving me reinforcement and encouragement about what we're doing and what I've been doing and some of the broader work that I do outside of this podcast, like the book and stuff, and just to keep going. But I think this has probably worked well because of some of the comments and feelings you've had through this episode. So I just want to read this to you. It's short.
Okay.
Of course, we also need you to keep Nick around everywhere you go. You'll never stand a chance of losing yourself to your ego with the sincerest man on the planet by your side. I feel he represents me, or what I'm trying to be. He's the man that is the living expression of what you teach us, humbly trying to put his family first and that being enough for him. And that is a beautiful example to share with the world. Nick likely won't get the glory, but in a way, he is the glory. Yeah, I just thought that was, just such a beautiful way of describing what you do for this community, mate. And I think it's really important to recognise that. This is an emotional roller coaster for both of us. You're coming in here I work in this space, I'm trained in this space, and you're coming in here. The beautiful thing about you is we're both doing this, I think, for a positive reason. You're doing it to be the best parent you can. There are times where we record this episode. This one's going to be 2 hours. And recently we sat here and talked for another hour or so while you made notes. Like, you know, you are genuinely here. You are the sincerest man. You are trying to be the best parent you can be. And I think the guidance that you give all of us, including me, is possibly the most powerful thing of the podcast. And I hope that gets acknowledged enough.
Yeah, it does. And thank you. And that note's really nice from that person. But yeah, I get to come in here with a blank slate each week and just learn from you and ask all the questions I want on any topic. And then I get to speak to you after as well for something else. So,
but we also learn off all the listeners, don't we? And the amazing stuff that comes in.
Yeah,
it's so humbling.
And that's
inspiring.
what's changed probably the last 6 episodes. You've brought in more of like the listeners' stuff as well. We've always done it, but it's been less deliberate. And now it's very deliberate, like these notes you read and this advice and this application of the stuff you're doing. And I think the one from a couple of weeks ago, I can't remember the topic, the heat, the guy had the really tough time.
Yeah, the
cyclones
dad.
and stuff.
Yeah.
It's amazing, and that sort of feedback's awesome. And I just it's all your approach. Like I don't know what we're doing, so I come in with the same level of knowledge as 20, 30,000 listeners or whatever it is that are going to listen to it or something like that. Like it's amazing, and I'm really lucky to sort of come in here and do this, and like the people like it, and it's all genuine.
Yeah, it's 100% genuine. Yeah, there's nothing manufactured in here.
A lot of knowledge I'm sitting on.
But it's beautiful, but a bit of a tearful episode. There's some milestones coming up. Thank you for everyone that's buying the book. Instagram is getting choked up. If you're going to message, please go to the new website. Come through there. I'm sorry if you're getting blocked on Instagram. I just can't get to them all. We're going to talk to the socials team. And we're going to hit 1 million downloads soon, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome.
We're going to hit 100 episodes. We might see if we can do a live show.
Well, we're talking about doing a live show. I think I wasn't sure we were talking about doing a live show.
But we might see if we can before the end of the year, just in Melbourne, a small group. And we just think everyone is amazing. Thanks for everyone who sent in all the questions and feedback. And we're excited to touch on another topic with a movie that hasn't been chosen yet. So apologies to the people that are like, do you reckon you could throw us the movie on the back of the episode before it? And I'm like, I'm just trying to give Nick a couple of days to watch the movie.
There's no Easter eggs. It's not like a Marvel thing where we get to the end and then we reveal it. We don't. It's all on fly by the seat. Yeah. Awesome episode, Billy. Fantastic. We've just cracked the 2-hour mark. So brilliant. Thanks for hanging around, guys. Really appreciate it. And we'll come back to you with another one shortly, as Billy said. See you guys.
Hey, don't let your mother smell that beer on your breath. She'll take it out on me.
I don't want to see you again for the rest of my whole life. And I don't want to see anybody else either.
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
Just use your best judgment. We trust you.